Welcome. We're about to break down a massive global shift in the world of crypto. Now, most people haven't even heard of it, but trust me, it's going to affect pretty much everyone involved in this space.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a big question. Right now, today, how much do you think governments can actually see when it comes to your crypto assets?
For the longest time, there's been this massive gap. Traditional banking, it has these clear, standardized pipelines for reporting. It's an open book. But crypto, well, for tax agencies, it's mostly been a black box. And that right there is the exact problem this new global framework was built to solve.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into that black box problem that crypto created. Then, we'll introduce you to CARF, the new global rulebook. After that, we'll break down how it all works step by step. Then we'll dive into the really heated debate it's causing, privacy versus fairness. And finally, we'll get to the most important part, what this all means for you.
So why was a new standard even needed? Well, it's pretty simple actually. Crypto is global, it's borderless, and that created this huge blind spot for tax authorities, a total contrast to the old, highly regulated world of banking.
To try and fix this, a group of 38 countries, you've probably heard of them, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, they stepped in to create a whole new global rulebook.
And here it is. It's called the Crypto Asset Reporting Framework, or CARF for short. And its goal is really simple, to give tax authorities consistent, reliable data about crypto transactions that are happening all over the world.
Okay, now this is super important, so let's get it straight right out of the gate. CARF is not a new tax. It doesn't create new taxes, and it doesn't change your country's local tax laws one bit.
A much better way to think about it is like this. CARF is building a brand new global information highway. Your country's laws, they're still the rules of the road. All CARF does is make sure that financial data can travel smoothly and automatically between tax authorities, so they can apply their own rules. It's basically enabling a level of global financial surveillance we've never seen before.
So how does this information highway actually work? Well, in practice, CARF really focuses on the on-ramps and off-ramps of the crypto world, the centralized services and intermediaries that most of us use to buy and sell.
The process itself is pretty straightforward. It starts when you do a transaction on a platform. That platform, say an exchange you use, then records that transaction and links it directly to your identity. Then, they send a report to their local government, and from there, that info gets shared automatically and globally with the tax agency where you live.
So what exactly are they reporting? Well, it's all the stuff you'd expect. Your name, address, where you're tax resident, and summaries of your trades and transfers. But the real kicker here, the absolute key, is linking all of that activity to your real-world identity that you gave them when you signed up. So you can see CARF is really going after those centralized companies, those intermediaries. But this opens up our first massive knowledge gap. Regulators are still scrambling to figure out how to handle services that call themselves DeFi, decentralized finance, but might still have some central points of control. This gray area right here, it's a key battleground to watch. It's really easy to get all these different regulations jumbled up. So let's break it down. Think of it like this. There was already a reporting highway for banks called the Common Reporting Standard, or CRS. CARF is basically just CRS for crypto. And the travel rule, that's something else entirely. It's all about stopping money laundering by making sure services pass sender and receiver info between each other. It's not about taxes at all.
Okay, as you can probably guess, creating a system to globally track people's private financial data, well, it's kicked off a huge, and I mean huge debate about the very future of crypto.
On one side, you have supporters who say, hey, this is long overdue. It creates tax fairness, it helps crypto grow up. But on the other side, you have critics who are deeply concerned, arguing that this just creates massive cross-border databases of our personal info, basically a system of mass surveillance. And these aren't just vague fears. The concerns are super specific. Like, what happens if this giant global database gets hacked? Or what if it has errors about your transactions that are almost impossible to fix once they're shared all over the world? And what's to stop an employee at an exchange or a tax agency from misusing all this data? And that leads us right into our second big knowledge gap. CARF makes the data collection standard, right? But the enforcement, well, that's up to each individual country. How aggressively are they going to use this new fire hose of data? The truth is, we just don't know yet. Which brings us to what might be the most critical knowledge gap of all. Security.
I mean, we're talking about massive amounts of super sensitive financial data flying between countries. What specific protections will be in place to guard these new global databases from hackers and leaks? The framework itself is surprisingly quiet on the details there.
And look, don't think this is some abstract thing happening 10 years from now. This is right around the corner. Platforms have to start collecting data on January 1st, 2026, and the very first international reports will start being exchanged in 2027.
Okay, so after all that, what does this actually mean for you? Let's get into some practical takeaways. And just a quick reminder, this is not financial advice, but just some things to think about in this new environment.
The bottom line here is simple. Visibility is going way, way up. So knowing the tax rules where you live and keeping clean, detailed records of your transactions, that's no longer optional, it's essential. And you should start treating those extra information requests you get from exchanges not as a pain, but as a sign that this new global standard is officially kicking in.
And that really brings us to the fundamental question at the heart of this whole thing. By creating a system of global tax surveillance, CARF is making crypto look a lot more like the traditional financial system it was meant to challenge. So we have to ask, is total transparency the price crypto has to pay to finally go mainstream?